everybody. Oh, hi, Andrea. So excited. I'm seeing that there. Okay, gotcha, Andrea. We are so excited to bring you guys this amazing information. I know I'm excited to just kick back and learn from Andrea. Because I don't honestly know very much about this topic at all. I was just sitting here thinking as I was preparing to go live, I was thinking about all the questions that I could ask you. This is going to be so fun. So you guys, Andrea, if you haven't already seen in the event information, Andrea is a naturopath, an acupuncturist, and energy worker. And you know what I feel like I could share with you guys, you know, why her? I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who are powerful and are bringing magic to the world, but there's something about Andrea's energy. Shoot, and I hope I'm saying it right.
No, it is. Right? We did this. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Andrea, which is so funny because when I went to naturopathic school, there was an Andrea and there was an Andrea, and we were all friends, and they were like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, you know what? It's totally okay. So it is Andrea.
Andrea.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like all the Andreas and should have like a thing over which part of their name. But I'm the same way. My parents named me Melissa with one L, one S, and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten me Lisa. Is it me Lisa? And I'm like, no, it's just complicated.
And I have the same thing with Alyssa. There's like Alyssa's and Elise and like all of these words. Like I have that issue with like those, not issue, but it's just like, I'm like, is it Alyssa or Elise or Alicia or, you know, so there's some names. Yeah.
So you guys, Andrea has a powerful energy to her. If you haven't felt that already, then I want to just invite you to open up your own spirit to her. Because it's funny, she reached out to me and we've been friends now on Facebook for a couple of years, but she reached out to me just the other day and said, hey, like, this is what I do and I think we should collaborate. And it was just like a soul yes. So that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. As you know, if you've been here for some time, I don't often bring in a lot of other experts just because I don't want to bring a confusion energy into this space. I kind of did that a lot in the beginning with my business and as I was figuring out my own voice. And now like our group has a really specific purpose. And so that's why I brought her in. I feel like what she offers is something that I don't know much about and that I don't really speak to, but I think that us as a collective here in this group really would benefit from this information and from what she has to offer. And really women everywhere. There's, you know, it really is kind of a taboo, you know, thing to talk about, you know, anything to do with our pelvic floor, this whole aspect of our bodies. And so you're breaking that stigma, and I think it's beautiful. Well, Andrea, tell us about yourself. What else did I leave out that we need to know about you?
Perfect. Well, and I'll add to that story. It was just so interesting because I didn't even scroll back to our messages. And like you had said, we've messaged like 2 years ago, and then that just sort of fell off. And then we're in this group together, receiving circle. And I was like, and then I looked at her group and I was like, oh my gosh, like how can I contribute and collaborate with you? Because I'm getting all these downloads of how to support, you know, feminine energy and feminine embodiment and the pelvic floor in a different way than I had in the past. And it was the same thing. It just felt really serendipitous. So a little bit about me. I am a naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist. I live in Oregon. And really about a year ago when everything happened with COVID, I had a clinic. I was doing these in-person pelvic floor. I was leaving insurance. I was really creating these intimate healing packages for women. So postpartum, menopause, intimacy, really supporting the pelvic floor because I'm trained in what's called holistic pelvic floor, which is taught by a PT, but it's all intravaginal, like in the clinic. But I wanted to make this even more spiritual. Like
wait a minute, hold on. You're sharing all this stuff, and I don't know. Are you guys like me in the comments? Tell me if you're like me, but I'm like, already I'm like, oh no, she's using all these big words and I don't know what she's talking about.
Okay, so
let's have a real straight talk today.
I love it. No, I love it. So in the clinic, I was using, so intravaginal, right? So it's, you literally go into the vagina, like with a finger, and you're assessing the tone, and it's not a massage, but I was trained in ways to assess the pelvic floor. So look at all aspects of the pelvic floor, and the tone of it. So, but for women that have tight, tight vaginas, women that have looser vaginas, women that are coughing, like we did that post of, do you pee when you laugh, jump, cry, sneeze is a big one. And so I did that training when I was in naturopathic school, knowing that I actually did a lot of support in midwifery. So I've been to about 60 home births. I really love supporting women, and not only just postpartum, which means after having a baby, but just in general, this women empowerment. And then COVID happened. And so I really closed my clinic down and was guided by a mentor to create an energy healing form that integrates acupuncture and acupuncture points. So I did that.
Wait, okay, so again, so do you mean that they're putting needles in that space?
No. So this is in the physical, the holistic pelvic floor. It's all just with a finger, like one finger.
Oh.
Not at all like a gyne exam, nothing like that. Like people think of like vaginal work, and you're like, I'm going to be in stirrups, my legs are going to be up, and be super uncomfortable. I'm going to leave my body, because that's what we do every time we have a gyne exam. Don't want to talk about that area because we haven't really been taught how to talk about that area. So this is really, it's like not in that type of setting. So I really spent 2020 I created an energy healing form, and now have a certification program. So ultimately learning all about energy medicine, how that really, you being Melissa, where you are in the world, I can provide you support and place energetic needles in your body, and you notice a difference, and walk you through a visualization that actually leaves you much more empowered at the end of it. So you have tools, right? Because one of my big missions is empowerment. So you get done. That's how we change the healthcare system, is people feeling empowered to take control of their life. So I kind of put the pelvic floor stuff aside. And also I have to show you this, because you guys can't see this, but I'm like big and prego. I'm big and prego. So really about 4 weeks ago, all this pelvic floor work started coming back, as far as saying, why can't you do what you're doing with acupuncture on the pelvic floor? Like, not, energetically supporting people from, where you are, I can do this treatment. And so I just started getting really excited about it, and I started talking about it, and people were like, oh my God, I want that. Tell me what to do. And they just started buying my healing packages. They're like, of course, like and now when they're done, they're like, every single woman needs this. And what I found was that even when you're where you are, Melissa, and I'm where I am, it's actually even more profound than if I were in the clinic space with you.
Whoa, really?
Which is blowing my mind. So I can still assess the tone of your vagina, like we're going to use that word, or your pelvic floor, and make sure that you're in your body with me, and move through this whole healing process, which is just blowing my mind. And so that's really, when I saw Melissa's group, and that, you guys aren't talking about necessarily the pelvic floor, but feminine, the feminine embodiment and intimacy, and how to bring that into not only your relationships, but I know Melissa also has a business. Like, how do we bring this into if we're not connected to our pelvic floor, we're not in our feminine embodiment, which means we're not in our relationships, which means we're not as much in our business, which means we're not as much receiving.
Whoa, you just totally spoke to my soul. I'm like,
right?
I need that. You guys put in the comments, does that resonate with you? Like, put in the comments. I'd love to hear who's watching here. We do have we've got Crystal, who said that she is in PT. She's going to be a PT, so maybe she's in PT school or something. Oh no, she goes to a physical therapist.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And she is familiar with trigger point therapy for the vagina. So that's super cool. Also, you got a congratulations on your baby.
Yes, thank you. I know, right? It's so funny. It's just you can't tell. So.
Do you want me to interrupt you as questions come in?
Absolutely.
Or should we? Okay, so you guys, if you have questions about what she's saying, I have this benefit that I can interrupt her and ask her a question. But you guys can put these questions and I'll monitor the questions as they come through.
And I have it too. So I'm with you. I've done this without looking, and I'm like, I like to be tuned in, like to see that Miriam's here and Colleen's here, and I've done it without tuning in, and I feel really like discombobulated. So I want to tune in with the women that are watching here for sure. Yeah. So just even share a teeny bit, and then we'll dive into like why this is important. And so even yesterday, somebody said in a session, what did she say? We're working on receiving. Like she's left corporate. She wants the feminine embodiment and money. Like we forget that our pelvic floor and that root chakra energetic space has so much to do with how we receive in the world, right? Because think about intimacy. So we're like, literally, that's where you receive your partner. And so if we're not taught to have this open conversation. So as leaders and business owners, and I know not everyone in the group is necessarily a business owner, if we're not really tuned into this space, then we're going to find, we're going to have, not issues, but we're going to find areas that could use improvement. And I remember when resistance to receive.
It makes me emotional to hear you say that, because I have, so the thing for me is I've seen this in clients. I've already seen this connection, but I don't know about it. So I didn't really know why. I just know that this space and area of our body, our whole womb space, this whole area is connected to our being. Oops, sorry, my computer froze for a second. But it's, so I've seen that, and I've seen the powerful transformation as women, face the beliefs or stories or judgments that they have towards this whole area of their body. But I didn't really understand why. Oh my gosh. So when you said, I want to reiterate what you said when you said, if you're having trouble receiving, like in the world with your abundance, are you also having trouble receiving, like intercourse?
Totally.
Trouble is there blocks there, or receiving pleasure or orgasm?
Libido, or your low libido, right? Yeah. So we talk about, because who's going to go on the internet, or like people are literally Googling, like someone said they say PT, like people are literally Googling, how do I help if I sneeze when I pee? And they're going to get a PT, which there's nothing wrong with that. But what I want to get into is the energetics of it. I want to get into the lineage stuff. I want to get into the mom, dad, how you were, this comes up just energetically in the pelvic floor, like the stuff you took on from your mom, the stuff you took on from your dad, all the lineage beliefs around receiving and sex. So and if we're,
see, like my curiosity is, did you ever see that, if you just tried to manipulate things in a physical sense, that it would be resistant to change because you haven't changed the spiritual or energetic portion?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually why, what 2020 did was give me so much more information about, I went all energy. I'm like, you know what, you could take the nutrients, like the vitamins, and do the exercise, but if we're not shifting the energy and the kind of spiritual aspect and connections, it's not, you're kind of like a hamster on the wheel going around and around and around. And so that's why like physical therapy can get you to a certain place, but often you'll slip back because we're not addressing what's emotional, what's coming up energetically, what's coming up.
Because I don't talk about all of that stuff a whole lot in this group. Like I'm sure there's people here who know about energy and stuff like that, but I've even seen that. And have you guys seen that? I've even seen, if I go to get a massage, if I haven't really taken care of my mind space and my heart space, I could, like, I'll feel great during the massage, and then basically like 5 minutes after I've left, I'm like, wait, I thought I just got a massage.
I go to bed and I'm like, wait a second, I put my oils back on. I'm like, I'm still tied up here,
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So what you're saying, that's what that is.
Yeah.
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 Right. Because we're so much more than our physical. Oh, yes, exactly, Natalie. Yeah, it does bring up a lot of emotion because even in a session, people are like, why haven't we talked about this our entire lives as women? You know, why haven't we had a mom that's like, let's talk about orgasming and sex and how to, you know, like how to not have the same sex position for the rest of your marriage, you know, but right, it's like, oh my god. Which is intimacy, right? It's this conversation. But if we have religious, you know, religious beliefs around, which every, you know, they're pretty much all types of religion, there's something, you know, if our vagina and our pelvic floor space and the root chakra energy space has all of that weight, you know, then it's really difficult to be intimate, to be open, to even talk to your partner about, hey, let's try something different. Right?
Yep. Yep.
Because it feels vulnerable,
yeah,
you know?
and for years too, because I was that way for years. It was like I don't even know what to say that I need or want. So I would just feel shame about that. Like because I didn't know my own anatomy. I mean, I don't even think so. You guys, my maiden name was Click, Click, and the boys in high school called me Melissa Clit. And I just thought it was a bad word. I didn't even know what it meant. I knew it had something to do with sex, but I didn't even know what it meant, you guys, until I think probably it's been within the last 5 years that I finally Googled clitoris to know what the heck that was and where it is. And then come to find out that, you know, it's in different places kind of for different women. It can be hooded, it can be kind of concealed, or it can be very exposed, all these different things. And like you said, why aren't we talking about this from day one?
Yes, exactly. And I want to answer. So Crystal popped in and talks about sexual abuse. So Crystal, I'm really glad that you brought that up. And I know that's really difficult to even bring up. So I know that you feel really safe in this space. So this does really help. What I always suggest when I do this work with any type of sexual abuse is that you have a counselor as well, right? So that we're navigating, because we're bringing things up, and really the purpose is to bring it up, to bring circulation into that area and teach you how to release it. So in the bringing up, if it were to activate any deeper emotions, then I do like people to have a counselor for sure as well, or just like somebody to work through that, because I'm there to do the physical, emotional, spiritual support and releasing. Yeah, absolutely. Then it's great. You know, then it is like, then we're kind of covering all of the bases, and you're not really feeling like, wow, I brought all this stuff and I released it, but now I don't have the talking board or that support. So yes, I love the so let me know if that makes sense. And Crystal, you said you do, so that's perfect. That's really the one area where I like to call in more support for, is definitely with sexual abuse. And it does help with that, because I'll explain this in simple terms, like what you talked about, a massage. So we can all squeeze our shoulders and there's tension there, and that's the stress of the day, or like the weight we're carrying. And when I think about the pelvic floor, you know, it's really like a mesh of muscles. And where is it? It's at the bottom of holding all of the organs, holding everything up. And so where are we going to stuff and store things the most? In our pelvic floor.
Whoa.
Right? like when you think about that, you're like, oh yeah, of course I get this, but this is up here. So think about all that, you know, stuff that we're ultimately storing, not only the sexual, the intimacy, the receiving, but just the junk, you know, the stuff that we're not really taught on a daily basis. How do I start releasing? Like I start releasing the stress of every single day. I just have a habit right before bed. I like either do some type of, like, I unzip myself and kind of take my energy off for the day, and I'm like, there we go, we're done with that one. Or I kind of do like a visualization of just releasing everything from the day. But if we don't have some easy daily habits, then we're stuffing and storing. And the question is, where are we stuffing and storing? And a lot of that happens in the pelvic floor and that space. And so when we're talking, you know, about supporting your group and the intimacy and relationship and femininity, it's kind of our responsibility to start to say, oh, what can I start to get rid of? You know, what can I obviously allow it to come up and acknowledge it and see what needs to heal around it, but ultimately start to learn, you know, we become embodied females when we learn how to let the stuff go.
Let stuff go. So I want to re-emphasize what she just said, because she just gave you guys a tool that you can take home right now and utilize to, and you're saying even doing this will help the health of your pelvic floor, which is doing like an emotional release practice with whatever things don't serve you, whatever thought patterns, emotions, worries from your day, all of that stuff, to make a practice of releasing those on a daily basis. I really love that.
Yeah, and it might be different for some people. I like to write, so sometimes I'll write and I'll burn stuff, or you know, I'll talk it out or just visualize it. And so another tool I wanted to give in is just to start tuning into the space, to like hand over that lower abdomen and tune it. I'm gonna give a free like a little handout of a very simple meditation that we can do every day, like 5 minutes, really just starting to tune into that pelvic floor, lower abdomen space, so that we can start to acknowledge it. Because how often are we shutting down and living from up here? And really, when I think about receiving just in life, we need to connect the pelvic floor space up to the heart, because those are two really big spaces for us as women, you know. Mm-hmm. So that's that. I will provide that as a link to here in a little bit. And then also,
you know what, can I say something about that?
Yeah.
So, or maybe even kind of just want to hear your thoughts about it too. I when I first started entering the energy healing world and learned about chakras and stuff, it seemed like there was a hierarchy of chakras, which I'm, you know, letting go of that belief system now. But you know, it was like in my mind, like the third eye is going to be the most important chakra, because that's like how you connect to God and your spirit and stuff. And your crown chakra obviously is like the chakra of enlightenment. So those are most important. So I gave, you know, as little attention as necessary or as possible to these lower chakras. And I grew a lot in that space, but it's fascinating because in my work with clients and then in my own journey and my own stepping into my feminine energy, I'm like, oh, heart down. I'm like, this is like everything. And I think like what is that? Because I was talking, okay, root chakra, it's all about your survival, and so that sounds like my ego. It sounds so low. And yet for a woman, it's like, that's also where I like have the actual act of creating life. And then the next one up is like actually where the baby is formed and made and all my ideas are birthed, and then the next one's my power. And then, you know, so can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that out, because I did write down, you know, the emotional aspects, the physical aspects, and the energetic aspects. And I love that you said that. Just that almost shows me that, I mean, you know, just that we're so easy to turn away from one of the most important, you know, energy centers. Like I'm the same way. I'm like, well, of course I want to be psychic. I want to connect to my guides. I want all this stuff. And then I'm like, oh yeah, the heart's really important. Oh yeah, my power, you know, like, it's like you said, there's really none that is more important. But really looking at the energetic aspect of the pelvic floor is that root chakra is our safety. It is the foundation. It's also exactly like what you said. It's how we receive. It's really where we receive and how we release into the earth. So think about, I know this is so cliche, it's a little cliche, but the red tent, you know, I think about the book, The Red Tent, where women would just get together and have their cycles, and they would literally just bleed onto the earth. And that's the giving and the receiving. Like, we are so disconnected from the earth, but that root chakra is what ties us into the earth.
Is there anyone else who thinks about that and thinks, I want to do
well, they talk about eating chocolate and having like delicious food. I'm like, can I do that more than a week? You know, more than
just have like nothing else to do but bleed in a tent with a bunch of other women and release all the, oh my gosh, to me,
and and like those songs that you had, like literally that's what I envisioned. Like those songs, even just before we started, was like bringing women together, connecting into earth. And really that's how we're received. We think we only receive like spiritual guidance because God, source, creator, whatever word you want to use, is above us. But actually the earth has so much divine guidance to give us. And so that energy center, you know, the root chakra is really, it's like we are really the conduit, because we connect with the top of our head and then through that root chakra into the earth. And those are both really amazing. And really that, like you said, the pelvic floor energetically is our ability to lead in our life, in our families, in our relation, and not lead in a relationship like I'm leading over a man, but how do I show up in my fullness, in my full embodied feminine state, so that he can also show up in his divine masculine. And this is not to say that, again, we don't need the divine, we need inside of each person, we need the divine feminine and we need the divine masculine. It doesn't work otherwise. It's like yin and yang. Like we really need both. We've just all shut down our divine feminine so much that we have to have more of a conversation because it's been stuffed away and stored. So I'm going to see if there's any questions too. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, how do I release when the communication is cut and blocked? I think Natalie, just even tuning in. So we want to tune in first before we think about releasing something. So it's almost like you're a step ahead by saying, how do I release it? First, we want to just tune in and say, what's there? Like that's part of my handout that I'll provide a link for. It's like almost done. So like, what's in that? Like if you hand on that over that space and doing the visualization, things will come up, memories will come up. And that's what you want to see first. You want to see what's being stored there first, and then you can release it. But if I'm just sort of going in there and like wanting to release things that I haven't quite identified or taken responsibility for or seen, and that's where the therapy can really support. Yeah. Oh, Miriam. Yeah. So the awareness first, and then we can really release. So. And then we did some joke. I mean, I always think it's sort of joking, but it really is what brings us all together. The physical aspects of the pelvic floor, like Melissa posted, was like, who pees when you laugh, sneeze, jump, crouch, crawl? And so many women are like, oh my God, that's me. You know, that's what I thought. It's so awesome. And the physical aspect of the pelvic floor and root chakra and this feminine embodiment is what can start to bring us all into this conversation, because we can all relate to it. Even my people that are in their 50s can't jump on a trampoline. And I'm like, and then someone had said, oh, well, I'm just destined to that. Or somebody that's had 4 kids, oh, I'm just destined to that. And I'm like, no. We can retune and realign all of that pelvic floor support so that the physical parts of the low libido, the hormone imbalance, the loose or tight muscles, because it could be either one. They could be really loose because we didn't learn how to hold that container, or we've had 4 babies or 3 babies, and they could be really tight for the opposite, that because we're so tight in our life, or control, or the masculine coming in. So the physical aspects are really important to acknowledge and know that my firm belief as a healer and naturopathic doctors, we can heal all layers and levels. It's really, once we get the underlying energetic imbalance and what's being stored there and what's, you know, what wants attention, then we can really teach the physical aspect of the body how to heal and how to regain that balance.
A big motivator for me, and I may have a big misunderstanding about this, but I know a lot of women who have had a lot of children, and then later on in their life, they get things like prolapsed bladder, or like stuff where their organs are falling out, and I'm like, I don't want that. I don't know what that is, but it seems like, and maybe, like I said, maybe I have a misunderstanding, but it seems like these women who have had a lot of children, or you know, where there would be more compromise going on in this area of their body, that then they're the ones who are more vulnerable to these kinds of horrific things happening. Is that right? Is that like?
I mean, I think having more children through that space definitely puts more stress. And then certainly without any training of, like, people say, oh, just do kegels. Oh, just, like, guess what? I'm doing kegels. But doing a kegel in an imbalanced space is just making the muscles tighter. So it doesn't, you know, that's not the quick solution. The solution is to really start to address and come in and, you know, clear energetically and then retone the muscles. So yeah, you could be more likely, but it's dependent on a lot of things. How are you eating? Are you exercising? Are you getting appropriate nutrients? Have you had the support in the pelvic floor ever? Like, it really should be that every single woman has some type of knowledge of how to support their pelvic floor.
Did you guys hear what she just said? Every single woman should have some sort of knowledge about how to support our pelvic floor. I mean, literally, when you say that, all I know is kegels. I'm like,
Right.
That's what they say. That's like the thing, right? And that's never really made a big difference for me one way or another. I mean, when I started peeing my pants, it was like, well, it doesn't seem to matter how diligent I do my kegels.
Right. And you know why? Because you've had 4 babies and like your muscles are like wonky, and we're gonna be a little wonky because we just brought a life into the world. And then if we don't heal, again, emotionally, physically, energetically in that space, and then we're carrying our mom's stuff, and then we're carrying our dad's stuff, and then we're carrying our relationship stuff, and then we're carrying our whole life stuff in that space.
Do you feel like, because is this part of the same conversation? Because I've heard of people who will do like birth trauma, energy type healing or therapy and stuff. And do you think that there's because of the trauma that the mother is storing in her own pelvic floor and womb and stuff, that then she, as the baby's being born and stuff, she is transmitting some of that? Is that happening through that area? Like, is that what that is?
I'm just reading someone else because I'll answer that. This is so funny. Sarah says, so I didn't tune out at first because she doesn't pee when she sneezes. And then I decided to show up, and I'm so interested, I'll have to watch the replay and catch the beginning. Yes, exactly. That's the thing, is that it's not just about the physical aspect of peeing when you sneeze. There's and it was so funny. Can I share what you said when we talked a little bit at first? Yeah. Okay. So we messaged, and I was telling her voice message, and then I'll answer your question because it's really good. And she's like, she said she had 4 kids. And so in my back of my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, she would be a great candidate for this. And she's like, oh no, I don't have anything wrong down there. And I was like, really? And then I was like, what about sneezing when you pee, or like laugh? She's like, oh yeah, I have that. And so that, right, we're so funny as women. We're like, oh no, like I'm all good. Or like libido or intimacy or hormones, or even if all of that is good and you're having great sex and you're receiving really well, but you're a leader and you're not like able to make the next step, pelvic floor work would help with that, which is really fascinating. Or you have all this, you have like, you don't have the heaviness, you've healed a lot of that stuff, but you want to receive the next level of support, then pelvic floor work can help with that. And as I tune in more energetically into the space, exactly what you said, if we're not healing our generational kind of stuff, trauma, just life, then absolutely that's one way how we pass it through our children coming through that space. Is it's kind of like an energetic gateway for I don't mean this as a doomsday, because I do believe we can heal anything. So it's really us taking responsibility for what we're here to heal, for our lineage wounds, for relationships, all of that. And so as we heal that for us as mothers and business owners or leaders, then our children are healed, and it gives them more freedom in their life. Because if I think about my parents and how I was parented, they weren't really doing much work on themselves, and no judgment. But so now where I am, I know that I'm here to shift my children's generation. And so
I feel like generations before us weren't even having these kinds of conversations, or didn't even maybe necessarily realize, didn't even recognize there's generational chains and stuff like that. I mean, now we can see it with like epigenetics and stuff. Like scientifically, they know that we pass down our family members what do they call predispositions to disease and stuff like that. So now even science is starting to back that up, where our parents, they didn't know any of that stuff. But so tell me, what would a session even look like with you? Because I feel like that can look a lot of different ways. I know the idea of going into a physical therapist and, like you said, having them poke around like a
Right.
gynecologist would, to me is just like, ugh, like I don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
No, and then like imagining stirrups. Yeah. So really,
Yeah.
it's like, so really what happens is you're where you are. So I can't remember where
I
where
live
are
in
you?
Reno, Nevada.
Okay, Nevada. Okay. So okay. I was thinking more Eastern. So Nevada. So wherever you are, ultimately I've set up a program for 3 90-minute sessions and 3 45-minute sessions. And in those 90-minute sessions, we do sort of, I'm not your doctor. I'm still not your doctor. I just kind of ask questions about intimacy, receiving, what you want to work on. And then you will lay on a bed, but you're not, like, you're fully clothed, you're under a warm blanket, you can use essential oils, you're super comfy. And I walk you through a nice grounding exercise so that energetically you're in your body, because often even if we're working on the pelvic floor energetically, we can tend to leave our body, like we do in a gyne exam, or, even sex, we can leave our body because we're like, okay, yeah, just get it over with or whatever. So the goal is to have you in your body, and then we do it as if it were like your clothes, but I just say, okay, we're going to assess the tone of your tissue, like the vaginal tissue. And then I like, okay, and now I'm going to press on each area of the different aspects of the vagina and what comes up for you. People will have memories come up, people will have sensations come up, they might have anger, they might have sadness, they might have grief. I just cleared yesterday, we did a lot of grief around not even being able to be embodied in the feminine. But it's just really cool because you're really like laying there with your hand on your heart and hand over your lower abdomen, focusing on being present in your body. And what I get to do is see what needs to come up or what's wanting to come up in that first session. And then it's a 90-minute session. The actual work is probably 40 minutes, but you're not naked. You don't have any lubrication, and you don't have anyone up like literally in your vagina.
What a gift you offer, right? What a gift you offer to people, because that's a barrier. That would be a barrier for me. I mean, I have to and I don't even have necessarily like real sexual trauma in my childhood or anything like that. And yet I act as if I have. And so when I go to a gynecologist, I have to like prepare my mind and my heart and my body and my soul, and I have intentions and mantras, and I'm ready to go to my like peaceful place in my brain. Like I do all this work.
Right. Like literally, but you disengaged. You're like, okay, tell me when you're done. And it can be the same with sex. And so really part of that healing is coming into the body, but we're not doing all of the stuff that's uncomfortable, right? The getting unclothed, the clinic space, the lubrication, the gloved, it's incredibly fascinating how, like I said, how powerful what comes up, because I'm highly intuitive, obviously, and I can sense what needs to be said. It's a gift I've had my whole life, and I've just been embodying it over the past year more and more because I'm teaching an energy healing form. So now I know how to tune into someone's body and say, what does the body need? Yeah, exactly. You would, yeah, and you're in a safe place. Like you could cry the whole time, and then the next session, Natalie, would be so much different. And I thought the same. Am I sharing this? Okay, I guess I am sharing this.
Yeah, I love vulnerability. I love it.
I'm like, oh, I am. So to be completely vulnerable, my business coach had suggested a technique called oming. Have you heard what oming is? Not meditating oming, but like with you. No, it's like with your partner, and it's for females, and it's a activation of your clitoris. I haven't done this yet, but she said this is really going to support you. And so I watched a very like not porny video. It's like it's created by an institute that has studied this and supports women and how it activates this area. And I was like, I did the same thing that Natalie said. I was like, I watched the video and I just cried, because I was like, holy cow, if I could receive in that way, it's not sex, it's not focused on sex, it's only focused on the woman. I was like, I'll probably cry and laugh the whole time, because to receive in that way feels really, really vulnerable. And this is like, this is different because we're addressing what's kind of stuck in that area, but it is vulnerable. I'm just kind of sharing, Natalie, with you to kind of let you know that it's a vulnerable space. And if you cried for 40 minutes, what a relief. Like, what a relief that you could have that space in your home to really start to release and allow that out. Oh yeah, I'll share. Yeah, I was not planning on talking about oming.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, what is that? I need to know.
I will share a YouTube link. And it was probably my most embarrassing chat with my mastermind coach. And I was like, okay, I guess this is where we're going. But also at the same time that it really, it was this receiving, right? That as women, we really don't know how to receive, and it separates the woman's ability to receive from sex. And the pelvic floor therapy is a similar aspect of learning how to release what's blocking your ability to receive, learning how to identify like the religious, the generational, the parent, the partnership, we could get woo and say past life stuff as well, and really allowing the body to release it because we store it in our physical body. And like, even what came up yesterday was some storage of past life stuff that they were really there to just, they didn't want this human to forget something that they had learned in a past life. So we acknowledged that learning, and then we could release it from the pelvic floor, which is, these are things that like I never would have imagined I would talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it's funny that way too, where you were like, oh, I never thought, and I had these awkward conversations but really, like, and maybe I just want to say this to those of you who are watching, like, when you set yourself up to be of deep service in the world in a principle, you get challenged in that principle beyond what most people do. And either that challenging started like when you were very young, or it just continues, because now I feel the same way. When I started really talking about and honing my niche as an intimacy coach, it was like, there's all this stuff I didn't know. And you get to explore these places. It's really beautiful, and I'm so grateful for that journey.
Yeah. And now,
I love what you're sharing about all these pieces about our pelvic floor and stuff, because as you were talking, I felt emotion. I felt like truth just coming into me that we are daughters of God. We are divine. We are these beings, and we don't even know like the depths of our power, and these things somehow these things have been like concealed and hidden from us about ourselves, about our own bodies. And something like so simple, if we were talking about pinkies right now, it would be like, oh, if my pinky's holding me back, like, let me heal that. That's very easy. But we have all these stories, and it just says to me, why have they been hidden so like so craftily? It's because, like, I just deeply believe God does not want us separated from our bodies in the ways that we are, or to feel like our clitoris is shameful. That's a bad word, like I started with, or or that our pelvic floor, we're all of these pieces, like. So I just really feel that like what you're doing is so important.
Yeah, thank you. And to add to that it's so important, because our, like, how we show up as women affects our kids, and affects them growing up, and it affects our relationships. Like the fact that I'm just like, I get so giddy because I'm like, she's an intimacy coach, and now we get to add this whole other layer and level, because if we're not talking about that space and how to heal it and how to support it, and I'm already like, let's create a program, like let's make a 6-month program of your coaching and my coaching, and I'll do the pelvic floor stuff and you do this other stuff, and like all that kind of stuff, because it really is it's so valuable. And it's 2021 is about like feminine embodiment and leadership, and we're going to see a shift. And those that are willing to step into their embodiment and do this work and do the deeper work will be, like, rewarded isn't even the right word, but your messaging becomes clearer, because
let's
you know,
speak to that. Like, what would be some clear, specific benefits or results that someone would be able to walk away from your program? Like, what do people actually in their lives? How does this actually benefit them?
yeah. So in the first place, a very safe place to heal. Like, that's the before the end. So like, just that you're being held in a very intimate space, like just reading that little thing. So the intimacy of that part. Then what you're walking away from is you're walking away with a deeper connection to yourself, which means you are able to identify like limiting beliefs or memories or generational things that are coming up within your life and your relationship. So because as we connect into that, different memories will come up, and you can start to say, oh, there's that old that's my mom. Oh my gosh, I don't need that in my relationship, or I don't need that in my raising my kids. So just a little bit more self-awareness of the emotions that we're carrying, a deeper ability to receive. So you'll notice, like, moving your business, let's say adding a 0 to your business, because you're just really opening that heart root chakra connection, and a deeper ability to show up in your relationships because you're empowered in that space. So that means with your kids and your partners and your, I'm going to always talk about business because we both have businesses, but in your own work. And what I think about feminine embodiment is that as we clear that space, more of you gets to come in, because ultimately what's happened is we've stuffed ourselves with all these other beliefs of everyone else, and there's no room for Andrea, and there's no room for Melissa, and there's no room for Natalie, and there's no room for like that next level of us to drop in. You're able to be in a flow state. So the feminine embodiment is really about bringing joy and movement and relaxation and trust back into your life. And when we're living in that state, the things that we need come. Oh, that I really need $5,000 in my business, or that those 2 clients, or, oh, they just come because I'm in my trust flow state, instead of being like my masculine, like, oh, I've done all the things. I was on this podcast. I did this and I did this and I did this, and it's not coming. And I'm like, well, because you fucking closed it off, or, like you closed all that off. Yeah. So really what we want to do is open you up to that, like the feminine flow of things really coming in. And again, if you don't have a business, that means in your relationships, that means in your kids, your life with your kids, you start to see moment by moment and be present to it, instead of just, we're like mom saying, well, it's less now because we don't have as many like soccer games to go to or things that, take all the kids to, but you're open to more of the flow state. And when you're in that flow state, you receive more money, you receive deeper friendships, you stand up for yourself in a different way. You make those accelerations in your business. You heal the generational stuff that's been holding us, back, because nobody ever taught us how to talk about it. So much that, my belly's getting tight. So the baby's like, yeah, mom. baby's here saying all of that. And then physically you're not peeing when you sneeze, and you can go jump on the trampoline, you can play with your kids, you have a libido, because you're like, holy cow, this is a powerhouse. I want to orgasm. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about intimacy. Let's change how we have sex, right? Because it's like, even to have that conversation. I just had that after I did this own video. I had that conversation with my husband. We've never really said, it was not in the bedroom. So that's the first suggestion. But outside of the bedroom, we had a conversation about it. And he was like, I was kind of nervous because we've never really had a sex conversation about what we wanted,
Wow. Yep, huge.
Like, yep. So all of that starts opening up. And then again, like somebody had mentioned trauma, like learning how to release, like if you've had trauma in that space, you're living in fight or flight so much of your life, and how to start releasing that so you can live in trust and flow.
So you guys, if you have any questions, I just want to reiterate, put those in the comments. And as we wrap up, if we see any of those questions come through, then
tag me in it. Yeah, tag me in the questions too. Yeah. So I can see that. And then
what do you want to share any last thoughts that you have with us, and then definitely share how how they can access your resources or access you some more, all that stuff.
Yes, perfect. I mean, my last thoughts are, again, like what I said earlier, is that we all need this type of support, you know, and whether or not it's with me, it's with somebody that we even start simple. So what I'm going to provide is a really simple handout of a meditation, and I'm just completing that. And then also I have a 3-pack that really is the best pack to work with me, because it's not a one and done. As we know, if we've stored all of our stuff in there, one session is not necessarily completing the phase. So I'll post a link. I like to do 3 90-minute sessions, and you also get 3 45-minute sessions with that. So it goes 90 minutes where we really get in, and then after that, a week later, we do a 45-minute session, kind of tuning in what came up, what do we get a shift, what's the next step, and then we take about 1 to 2 weeks off, and we do another 90 minutes. So the 3-session healing package is really what I'm finding is creating the biggest shift. And then maybe every year you do we tune in, and we need to do it here and there, if most likely when stress comes up, like when we're kind of reactivated. And then something a little separate, but I wanted to have it as an offering, is I've started a monthly healing membership. So if the pelvic floor package itself you're not quite ready for that, then you can get to know me through the monthly membership, where you get 2 group healing sessions twice a month, which I really like. And I'm creating that for families and kind of moms and leaders and healers as a safe place, because we all need a safe place to land and to heal. So those 3 really, those are the big things, and that I'm really focusing on.
Awesome. And so if somebody's watching this, whether now or on the replay, and they're like, I definitely have a question, but it is too embarrassing to post in the comments. Can they?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say. Make sure any chance to expand a little bit about stuffing yourself. Okay. So stuffing yourself. So emotionally, as women, we're often going to stuff those, we're going to put them in, like, you can tell when you're angry, but you don't get angry. You don't allow yourself to let that out. So either finding a form to let it out through written or spoken, like you could even go, I have a tree right here, I could go talk to a tree, which sounds absurd, but I'm actually letting that emotion out, or through even the guided meditation that I'll provide here written out, you starting to release through the pelvic floor into the earth. So meditating, coming into that space, recognizing what wants to be, asking just what wants to be released today, or what's coming up first, and then learning how to release it through the earth. So that way we're not we're actively either moving it up and out or down and into the earth. And that's kind of what I would talk about as far as stuffing. So
I love that.
Yeah. So anybody that, if the question is too intimate and or you have questions about the healing package, then definitely friend me and then private message me, so that then I get it, because sometimes, if we're not friends, then the private message goes somewhere weird that's hard to find. So I'm definitely here to answer any questions about that. And
where are you speaking about this in the world? Are you on your Facebook page? Are you posting about this primarily, or where can people follow you to get more tidbits about this?
Yeah. It's interesting, because I went from talking about my certification programs, and now this whole thing is dropping in. So I am doing more on my Facebook page about feminine activations and just why it's so important. And then I am a part of the Purpose Posse. So I do weekly meditations there. And then I do have my own group. My whole group is sort of shifting and evolving as, I'm pregnant and all this other stuff is coming in. So that's called Ascension Mastery, Business and Body, because I was really focused on the energetics of how we heal and the energetics of business. And now integrating this whole thing is kind of coming perfectly as having a baby, but I haven't integrated it into every single platform. But I would say my Facebook page is really where I'm doing that. And then I'm getting a deep call to do more Clubhouse. So even you and I going onto Clubhouse, or, talking, having that. So I'm getting a deeper call. Oh, well.
Samsung. I'm so jealous. All month I've been like, everyone's on Clubhouse.
Well, here's the thing. Someone else was like, so I joined this group and they're like, okay, well, is it worth $150? Probably, to go get an iPhone. I already totally called someone else. They're like, oh, I don't have an iPhone yet. He's like, dude, go get an iPhone, because what's happening over in Clubhouse is totally worth $150 upgrade or whatever it is. And I was like, oh, that's good. Or an iPad. So you can have an iPad that's more multi-use.
Okay.
So that's an option.
So
A
yeah,
used
so you
iPad.
guys follow Andrea on her Facebook profile if you want more tidbits of information about this. And just so grateful to you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us today. And are there any prerequisites? That's a good question.
No prerequisites.
You don't need to know stuff about energy. She's the expert.
Yeah. And literally I guess the one prerequisite is that you show up and you want to heal.
Awesome.
That's it.
That's great.
You want to heal. So yeah, this was amazing. Thank you everybody for watching. And I love connecting. And again, I'll be in that group. So tag me. And yeah, this has been really special. So
great. That's great. I think my biggest takeaway today is that this is really connected to us stepping into our truth, our divine nature, and that's everything for me. So I'm like, wow. Lots to ponder on that.
I know. Yeah.
Cool. And any ahas, after watching this, I'd love for you to post in the group and share those with us and with those who are in the group. And I had this go live in the event, so hopefully we can keep it in the group, but we'll make sure we reshare it and stuff like that. Thank you again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you do a watch party, it will pop up.
Okay.
You might do a watch party and then it could pop in. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.